Make sure you have a pen or pencil and a calculator. If you don't, press pause and go get them. Today we're going to be looking at section 6.1 and 6.2 and application problems. By the end of class, this lesson, you should be able to write inequalities to model real-world problems and solve the inequalities to answer the real-world questions. There are going to be three types of problems. Type 1 is simple inequalities. So let's take a look at number 1. Your friend Tonya runs a 6-minute mile. Write an inequality expressing how fast you must run X minutes per mile to beat her in a race. We can set this up as saying that my time, whoops, I need to get a pen, that my time has to be less than Tonya's to beat her. Now, we don't know what my time is, so there's our variable. And we know that in order to beat her, we need to be less than Tanya's, which is 6 minutes. So our inequality is x is less than 6. Let's move on to number 2. To win the bowling pin game at the state fair, you must knock down at least 3 pins by tossing the ball. Write an inequality expressing how many pins you must knock down, x, to win the game. Let's set up a verbal phrase. So we know that the pins we knock down has to be at least 3 pins. So from this, we can set up our inequality. The pins we knock down is the part that's unknown. That can be our variable. And at least is a key word here that tells us we're going to be greater than or equal to, and we know it has to be greater than or equal to 3 pins. Because it has to be at the least 3, but it can equal 3 or be more. So our inequality is x is greater than or equal to 3. Type 2 inequalities. Here we're going to set up inequalities that take the form y equals mx plus b. Number 1. You see an advertisement for instructions on how to tie flies for fishing. It will cost you $13.95 for a box of flies plus $1.05 for shipping and handling. You have $45 to spend. Step 1, we're going to write an inequality to represent the information where x is the number of boxes you can buy. So first, let's go ahead and set up our verbal phrase. We know that it costs $13.95 for a box, and I'm just going to go ahead and write box, plus $1.05 for shipping and handling. We know that this value has to be less than or equal to the amount of money that we have to spend, which is $45. And I'm going to go ahead and write right over that picture. So now that we have this written out, we can set up our inequality. We know that a box costs $13.95, but the boxes, we don't know, is it one box at $13.95? Is it 2 boxes each at $13.95? So the box becomes our variable. So now we have $13.95x plus $1.05 has to be less than or equal, again, to the amount of money we have to spend. So here is the inequality. It's $13.95x plus $1.05 has to be less than or equal to 45. Step 2, solve your inequality. How many boxes can you buy? All right, we're going to take the inequality that we just created in step 1, 13.95x plus $1.05 has to be less than or equal to $45. Now the first thing here we want to do to solve our problem is subtract 105 from both sides. And when we do that, we are left with 13.95x is less than or equal to 43.95. Now this last step we have to take here is to divide both sides by 13.95. And when we do that, we get x has to be less than or equal to approximately 3.15. Now, if we look at the question, it asks how many boxes can you buy? You cannot buy a part of a box. And here we're saying 3 full boxes and a little bit more. Well, that little bit more we can't purchase. So what we're saying is that you can buy at most 3 boxes. So the answer here, the best answer, would be that x has to be less than or equal to 3 boxes. Number 2, an amusement park charges $5 for admission and $1.25 for each ride. You go to the park with $25. Step 1, write the inequality that represents the information where x is the number of rides you go on. We know that you have to pay admission when you go to the park. So we have the cost of admission plus the cost, the dollar amount, for the number of rides you go on. Whatever that equals, we only have $25 to spend. So this total value has to be less than or equal to the amount of money we have to spend. So now we can go ahead and write our inequality. We know that admission is $5, and we know that our dollar amount for our rides is $1.25. But here where it represents the number of rides, we're not sure what that is, how many rides you're going to actually choose to go on. So that's where our variable goes. And we know that when we add the admission plus the $1.25 for each ride, that it has to be less than or equal to $25, which is what we have to spend. So our inequality here is that 5 plus $1.25, oops, that's kind of sloppy. Let me rewrite that. 5 plus $1.25x has to be less than or equal to 25. All right, step 2 says solve the inequality and how many rides can you go on. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the problem. So we've got 5 plus $1.25x has to be less than or equal to 25. First thing we're going to do is subtract 5 from both sides of the inequality. When we do that, we get $1.25x. Oh, again, it kind of blended together. So here we go. All right, $1.25x, which is less than or equal to 20. And the next step is to divide both sides by $1.25. And when we do that, let me check the calculator. 20 divided by $1.25, we get 16. So x has to be less than or equal to 16. So what we're saying here is that the number of rides we go on has to be less than or equal to 16 rides. Type 3, membership problems. Number 1, you want to join a DVD rental club. Members of the club pay $10 a month plus $1 for every DVD they rent. Non-members pay $3 for every DVD they rent. How many DVDs must you rent to make being a member worth the money? Step 1, we're going to write an inequality to represent the problem where X is the number of DVDs you rent. We're going to set up a problem where it says the cost of the member has to be less than the cost of the non-member. So first let's focus on the cost of the member. In the second sentence, it says members of the club pay $10 a month plus $1 for every DVD they rent. So we can write that as an inequality. So that's going to go under cost of member. It's $10 plus $1 for each DVD they rent. Now we don't have to write 1, we can just write plus X. Now we're going to look at the cost of our non-members. Our non-members we talk about in sentence 3. Non-members pay $3 for every DVD they rent. So instead of having a flat fee that $10, they're simply paying $3 for each DVD they rent. Now we want to know when will the cost of being a member actually be less than the cost of being a non-member. So here's our inequality. 10 plus X is less than 3X. Step 2. Solve the inequality. How many DVDs must somebody rent to make being a member worth the money? So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to rewrite the problem, and then we're going to go ahead and solve it. To get our variables on the same side, we're going to subtract both sides by X. And when we do that, we get that 10 has to be less than 2X. And then the last step is to divide both sides by 2. So we get that 5 is less than X, which we can rewrite as X has to be greater than 5. So what this means is that we have to, or a person has to, purchase at least, or not at least, more than 5 movies for being a member to make a difference. Number 2, you want to join a CrossFit gym. Members of the gym pay $30 per month plus $10 for every visit to the personal trainer. Non-members pay $20 for every visit to the personal trainer. How many visits to the personal trainer must you buy to make being a member worth the money? Step 1. Write an inequality to represent the problem where X is the number of personal trainer visits. The PT right here stands for personal trainer. So let's take a look at the cost of a member first. So here we're going to do the cost of a member. In sentence 2 it says members of the gym pay $30 a month, so $30 just to be in the gym, plus $10 for each visit to a personal trainer. Now let's take a look at non-members. Non-members, right here, pay $20 for each visit to a personal trainer, but they don't have a monthly fee. So $20 for each visit to the personal trainer. So our inequality here is 30 plus 10x. When will that be less than 20x? So this is our inequality. Let's go ahead in step 2 and solve it. First thing we need to do is subtract 10x from both sides. When we do that, we're left with 30 is less than 10x. And then we have to divide both sides by 10 so that we get 3 is less than x, which is best written with our variable first. X is greater than 3. So we have to have more than 3 visits to the personal trainer so that being a member is worth the money. Now turn to the next page for some practice.